Ready? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 1:05 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. With our agenda posted, we invited members of the public to view a broadcast of the Board of Directors meeting, which is live at www.youtube.com/State Bar of Texas. We also provided instructions on how to sign up to speak at today's meeting. Signups were available until 5 p.m. yesterday. Members of the public will speak after agenda item 5, and those members of the public joining remotely will remain in the Zoom waiting room until it's their turn to speak. Please note that this meeting will be recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. Mr. Executive Director, I invite you to please call the roll.
Director Augusto, Director Almanzan, Director Baruch, Director Bem, Director Brooker, Director Cavillo, Director Carlos Cardenas, Director Luis Cardenas has an excused absence, Director Cavazos, Director Charbonnet, Director Clark, Director Cordova, Director Crosley, Director Davis, Judge Earl, Director Barunda Firth, Director Fisher, Director Forbes, Director Gibson, Director Ginn, Director Goss, Director Harris, Director Harrison, Director Hoskins, Director Huddleston, Director Hurst, Director Asrani, Director Kern, Director Kroger, Justice Lehrman, Director Cortez Matas has an excused absence, Director McDonald, Director McDougall, Director Cara Miller has an excused absence, Director Mount, Director Murphy, Director Naylor, Judge Newell, Director Rispoli, Director Ritter, Director Schrammick, Director Shimbato, Director Scott, Director Sergi, Director David Smith, Director Jason Smith has an excused absence, Director Michael Smith, Director Todd Smith, Director St. Ives Brewer, Director Sood, Director Toby, Director Tolchin, Judge Troncali, Director Vargas, Director Vasquez, Director Pack Wilson, Director Wooten. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Next, I'd like to invite Director Benny Agosto to lead the Board of Directors in the invocation. Benny?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Houston, my hometown. Let's pause for a moment and thank God for the blessings and the opportunities we have here today. On this day, June 8th, 2022, the beginning of a new year for the bar and the end of the previous one, Lord, we thank you. Father in heaven, we pause to give you thanks and to consecrate ourselves for our families, for our clients, and for our community. We thank you for all the things you do for us, and in particular for the blessings that we have in our life, for the blessings that we can help others, and for the blessings that we look forward to continue to help people as we do our job as lawyers. As board members, we ask, in particular, Lord, that you continue to guide us, fill us with wisdom and love for each other, and allow us, Lord, to be that blessing to others at the bar and in our great state. We ask you, Lord, to allow us to continue to do good, that in everything we do, in word or in deed, that we do good to bring honor to our families, to our law firm, to our state, and to you. Allow us to have renewed energy and focus so that we can continue to serve our state and the lawyers of this great state. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for that beautiful invocation, Benny. We appreciate it. Next, I'd like to call Director Kim Naylor to lead us in the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Director Naylor. Welcome everyone to Houston and our final quarterly board meeting of the 2021-2022 board year. You all have been amazing this year, and I know we're going to finish this out strong today. With that, we're going to get started on agenda item number 5, which is comments from members of the public. And at this time, we'd like to welcome any members of the public who've signed up to speak. Any member of the public joining us in person who wishes to speak should sign a blue sign-in card and return it to the staff. Kaylin is holding up the blue sign-in card right now if we do have any members of the public that are present. And if there is a specific topic of discussion or an agenda item you would like to speak on, please list it on that blue sign-in card. Members of the public who have joined us via Zoom, if we have any, will remain in the Zoom waiting room until it's their turn to speak, and I will address you to indicate when you can begin speaking. Each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak, and at the 3-minute mark, I'd ask each of you to finish your comment if you haven't already done so. And with that, do we have any members of the public who have signed up to speak today? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, and the public comment period is now closed. During the remainder of the meeting, if there are any board members or staff who wish to speak at any time, you see the microphone in the center of the aisle. So please, if you wish to speak, please get up, approach the microphone. Make sure that you clearly state your name. I'll call on you to speak once you reach the microphone. And once you state your name, I'll call on you and you'll be allowed to speak on the topic that is germane to what we're dealing with at that particular time on the agenda. If from your tables that you're at, anyone intends to second a motion, state a point of order, make sure there are a lot of people here, as you all can see. So make sure that you stand up. I know sometimes people like to rush to try to get in a second or to state a point. Stand up, clearly state your name, and I will call on the first person that I see for a second or for a point of order. Also, whenever you do approach the microphone, and this is important for our new directors as well, whenever you do approach the microphone and you want to speak on a topic, we're going to make sure that it's germane to the agenda item. But also, we have to make sure that we don't crosstalk. What does that mean? That means that when we're speaking on an item, all comments are directed to me as a chair. If you have a question for somebody in particular, I can then direct that question to the appropriate person. But when we're talking, in order to keep this orderly, we're going to direct all of our comments to me, and we'll handle it that way. Okay, with that, we're going to take our first agenda item, which is an agenda item which we're taking out of order. Agenda item 19A, the report from our Supreme Court liaison, and I'd ask our Justice Lehrman to come up and provide our report.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I first of all, as always, want to, on the behalf of the court, thank you all for the service that you provide to the state of Texas. We know how much you give, how much you do, and how important it is. So thank you very much. And thank you to the staff I think that we have one of the best staffs probably in the country. I have the opportunity and the privilege to work with them on a routine basis. You do too. And you know how many hours they put in. Many times we talk on weekends, late at night, and they're always there doing everything they can. So thank you all. You all know that we've been through a very tough past several years. Never has the third branch of government been more important than it is today. The court has issued now, yes, 51 emergency orders. We just issued one last week that will last until August the 1st. We're hoping that we are at the end of this. I know we all are. The reason you may be asking, why do we still need an emergency order? First of all, the court is back to normal. We have been having in-person oral arguments and conferences this entire year since September. We expect that that's going on throughout the state, that trial courts are all back to normal. If that's not the case, we need to know about it. So be sure that you let us know if that's not going on. But we do expect that everything is back to normal at this point in time. The reason we need an emergency order right now is, as I've said before, and you all know, there's some good things that we learned out of the pandemic that have to do with virtual proceedings, remote practice. And we need to figure out what of that we're going to keep and what of that we're not going to keep. First of all, I want you all to rest assured that this hasn't been officially voted upon, but it's certainly Deborah Lehrman's opinion that jury trials are not going to be remote unless by agreement. So I think everybody should be able to relax about that. But there's a whole lot in between that we're not sure about. And as you all know, without an emergency order, we don't have any rules to provide for that. Justice Tracy Christopher out of Houston and Emily Miskell have chaired a committee to look into all the different statutes, all the different rules that are affected by virtual practice, done a wonderful job, have reported back to us. Now that is with our Supreme Court Advisory Committee that is considering exactly how this should all play out. I can tell you that I've been traveling throughout the state a lot this past year, and we get conflicting views from different attorneys about whether virtual proceedings are a good thing or whether they're a bad thing. And so we really do want to hear from you all as far as what your views are about virtual hearings. If you could please let us know through our rules attorney or through SCAC. I can tell you that all of those comments are read thoroughly by us, and we do pay attention to them. So please provide that kind of feedback in writing because we need it. We need to hear exactly what's working in terms of discovery, depositions, et cetera, pretrial matters, that kind of thing. So please let us know. We very much want to hear what your views are. With regard to the backlogs, our Court of Appeals are caught up. A lot of our district courts are caught up, but not all of them. Not all of our trial courts are. We have visiting judges that are helping bring things up to speed. The criminal courts, of course, is where the real problem is. Obviously, there was a problem with virtual jury trials, and criminal law was affected by that to a very, very great degree. The judges are working really hard to catch up, but as you might imagine, in the larger cities, that's been somewhat of a challenge. So please know that we are working as hard as we can to make sure that's behind us really soon. With regard just to a few other things, our local rules process in March, the court gave preliminary approval to a project that has to do with the local rules process. It should take effect January 1st of 2023. We're accepting public comment until then. And under our proposed rules, there will no longer be court approval process. That is our court for approval of those rules. We've tried to make it much more simplistic and kind of have any objection to those local rules that will be approved locally at the back end. And so hopefully that will make life easier for everyone. We had our first new lawyer swearing in just last week. It was the first one since November of 2019. So we're glad to be back on track. We had our State Board of Texas budget hearing on May 31st. And in fact, that budget was approved. And so I'm happy to report that to you all. And as has been the case for the last several years, the court is on track to clear our docket by the end of June. So again, thank you all for everything you do. We appreciate you. We know how important you are to the state of Texas, to the third branch of government, and we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Lehrman. Thank you so much. 1 second, Steve. I know that you have a question. We're gonna.
I do have a question.
Sure. For those of you who have been on the board for the course of the last year, this will come as no surprise, but Justice Lehrman has been a tireless leader for the bar. We're very lucky to have had her as our liaison. Justice Lehrman, thank you for everything you've done for us, and we really appreciate all of your efforts. You've been amazing. Director Fisher, you have a question?
I do. Good afternoon, Justice. I know you were here. I think you were here for.
Steve, you can direct your questions to me and then we'll
Okay.
handle them that way.
And yeah. Okay. And we had a meeting here where I think I brought 30 lawyers to talk about why we needed Zoom for lawyers to have some input into that, not just judges. And then I think the meeting afterwards, I think we voted unanimously on that resolution. There was amendments and stuff like that. And since that happened, 7 years ago, I lived in Rockport and I'm in El Paso, but there's not enough lawyers there. So I take a few cases there, and a judge told me just last week, he goes, Steve, because he wants everything in person, even cattle calls. And he said, Steve, maybe you should just not take cases in Rockport, which is okay for me personally, because it's not much of a profit, but still, it's not really the spirit of what I think the bar voted for and what most of the lawyers around the state. As lawyer populations grow, they're not necessarily growing in a lot of the smaller counties, and they need lawyers. And I don't know what to tell them. So I'm wondering from the justice, if we've made any progress on that, or is that something going to be considered that lawyers can have a say in? And I think the way it was worded was for contested hearings or for witness hearings where somebody can just appear by Zoom, but I know that's what the lawyers of the state want. Thanks.
Steve, is that a question that you have for
That's sort of a question for
Okay.
for the justice.
If Justice Lehrman is prepared to answer that question, I would invite her back up or to the microphone, whichever you prefer, Justice Lehrman, to respond.
I certainly appreciate that. The court is considering that, and we very much value what lawyers have to say about that. Like I say, I've been traveling throughout the state, and it's very interesting because some lawyers will come and say that remote hearings are wonderful, the best thing in the world. And then others will say that the opposite is true. And so we really do need input from all of you as to how it's affecting your practice, your ability to help your clients, because it is very, very important to us. And I really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Justice Lehrman. Okay, so before I forget, Jen wanted me to remind everyone that in the bag, the little blue carry bag that you have in front of you, if you signed up for annual meeting or for any annual meeting events, you have an envelope in that bag which has all of your tickets and all of the information that you need for all of the events that you've signed up for. Also, you should have a little lanyard in that bag, and in the envelope is the name tag for your lanyard. And so get a chance, open up the envelope, and you'll have all of your information in there as well as your name tag. With that, we're going to move on to the report from our Executive Director, Trey Atfeld. Trey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, board members, new and soon to be. In following with tradition, I will start with a brief report on the bar's achievements over the past bar year. Most importantly, we withstood a legal challenge to lawyers' self-governance and emerged with the state bar's fundamental structure and purposes intact. The resolution of the McDonald v. Firth litigation ensures Texas lawyers will continue to practice in a self-regulated profession with an independent grievance system, a privilege that no other profession enjoys. And in another positive result from the litigation, the state bar debuted a more transparent budgeting and expenditure objection process that offers members more information than ever before and how their dues are spent. On the new member services front, new member services introduced in 2021-2022 bar year. It included the advertising review portal and the fraud flag program. The advertising review portal makes it faster and more convenient to submit advertisements for state bar approval. The portal resulted from months of hard work from bar leadership and staff, and it reflected input from dozens of lawyers and law firms who shared ideas on how to modernize that process. The identity fraud flag program helps protect lawyers and the public from scammers by giving lawyers a way to voluntarily report to the state bar that they have been the victim of identity fraud. These programs are just two examples of the state bar's ongoing efforts to be responsive to our members' concerns. Also, the state bar expanded its fast case online legal research benefit this year. If you recall, this is a benefit that has at least a $2,000 value. This means Texas lawyers now have free access to millions of briefs, pleadings, motions, and orders through Docket Alarm within the Fast Case platform. Fast Case is among the ever-growing list of member benefit providers that offer discounted products to our members and services that help Texas lawyers with the everyday practice of law. You can view all of these on our website at texasbar.com/benefits. These achievements are a testament to our state bar leadership, to our board's leadership, and the other volunteers who fuel the work of the state bar along with the diligent efforts of our state bar staff. After 2 years of virtual meetings, we finally get to have an annual meeting in person. How wonderful it is. It's great to see the room full. For anyone watching who hasn't registered yet, you can still come to Houston and register on site for the activities that take place Thursday and Friday. Go to texasbar.com/annual meeting for details. Next, I have a Staff Excellence Award. And as I'm reading this and talking about Virginia, I'm going to ask Virginia Izaguirre to come forward. Virginia is the Director of Program Planning for Texas Bar CLE. She oversees the program planning teams and has a hefty course load of her own. During the pandemic, Virginia was instrumental in putting together the process of converting Texas Bar CLE programs from in-person to virtual events. No small task. She kept the big picture in mind during discussions on how to best execute, taking into consideration all areas of the department, including marketing, meeting planning, budgeting, sales, registration, customer service, and video production, and how changes to the process would affect each and every team. She took excellent notes that clearly summarized new processes and procedures to make sure we were all on the same page and ensured that everyone had a clear understanding and roadmap of our goals. Texas Bar CLE never skipped a beat. Virginia is a wonderful manager whose staff feel supported, heard, appreciated, and are therefore motivated to do their best. She genuinely cares for them individually and as a cohesive team. She cares about their growth, both personally and professionally. Her staff knows that she has their backs and will be there for them when mistakes happen. Mistakes happen, and she's the first to tell them to shake it off, get up, and let's fix the problem. Texas Bar CLE staff and managers rely on Virginia for her openness and good nature and look to her to troubleshoot problems in almost any area. She's a tremendous asset to Texas Bar CLE and is very much appreciated by her coworkers. She is a tremendous asset to the State Bar of Texas and to me personally. Congratulations, Virginia. Thank you for your commitment to excellence in your profession. Mr. Chair, that completes my report.
Thank you, Trey. Next, we're going to move on to the report from the chair of the board. Starting with the consent agenda, we need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Okay. Director Crosley has moved to approve the consent agenda. I believe Director Calvillo has now seconded that motion. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please respond by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes and is adopted. All right. Next, I have a couple of awards to present. First, the Outstanding Third Year Director Award. We appreciate the hard and amazing work done by every single one of our third year directors. But I want to take some time today to thank two third year directors in particular. Our first outstanding third year director served as chair of the ad hoc committee to select at-large members. And he did an amazing job leading the extensive process that resulted in the appointment of our two new at-large directors. He was also an active member of the executive committee and the budget committee, where his questions and his input never failed to improve the quality of the work that the State Bar put out. This director is a great friend. He's a true professional and really embodies the characteristics we hope to see in all of our directors: kindness, respect for others, and a heart for service. Our next outstanding third-year director, and I'll name them both in a second, served as chair of the Policy Manual Subcommittee, which tackled a number of very important issues this year, including significant changes to the policy manual on a very, very abbreviated basis. The work done by the Policy Manual Subcommittee this year has been nothing short of amazing. And with the help of this director, we came into compliance with the McDonald decision in record time. He also contributed his expertise to the board as a member of the executive committee and the appeals grant review subcommittee. This director is not only incredibly bright and hardworking, he's selfless, he's always willing to lend his fellow directors a hand, and he's just plain fun to be around. I feel incredibly fortunate to have formed friendships with each of them, and I know a lot of people in this room feel the same way. Andy Almanzan and Adam Schrammick, we honor you both for your substantial contributions to the State Bar. Thank you so much for your service, and congratulations. Adam and Andy, can you please come forward? Where's Adam? There he is. Andy, Adam, thank you again for all of your service to our bar. All right, so board policy states that from time to time, the chair has the ability to make special awards to public members of the board for outstanding service. And I've chosen to do that. And the director, the public member that will be receiving this award from me, has been a key member of multiple committees, did significant work this year, including the Audit and Finance Committee, the Client Security Fund Subcommittee, and the Performance Measures and Strategic Planning Subcommittee. He's widely respected among the board for his engagement and for his perspective on all sorts of issues facing the bar. And I still remember the very first board meeting that I came to when I didn't know anyone, certainly didn't have any clue what I was doing. I think some of you might argue that I probably still don't, but I was lucky enough that very first meeting, that very first day that I showed up, that I was seated next to Michael Vasquez. And Michael was as kind, as gracious, and as smart then as he is now. And he continues to be to this day. Michael, we're very grateful for your contributions to the State Bar, and congratulations. Thank you so much for your service. Okay, before I wrap up my report, I want to take a little bit of time to thank a few more people who've been truly instrumental in making sure that I had a successful year as board chair, starting off with the person who's responsible for keeping the trains running around on time around here, Jennifer Reams. Jennifer is an invaluable member of our team, everyone. She's organized, she's smart, she's funny, and she's just always so nice. I mean, she's really, really amazing. For all of the new directors who don't know Jen yet, you're going to see what a real treasure she is for the bar. She'll always treat you with the utmost respect, kindness, and professionalism. And I'd ask each of every one of you to please return the favor and treat her like the true professional that she is. Jen, you've been amazing. I could not have done this without you. Thank you so much. I'd also like to thank Trey Apfel, Kaylin Laney, Lowell Brown, Chris Ritter, Brad Johnson, Susan Brennan, Craig Chapman, our leadership team, and the entire State Bar staff. For those of you who've had a chance to work with the State Bar staff, you already know this. And for those of you who are coming to work with the State Bar staff, you'll get to learn we have a top-notch leadership team, a top-notch staff. And for that, I couldn't be more grateful. Thank you for everything that you all have done to help me have a successful board year. I really appreciate it. I've seen firsthand how hard this team works for the State Bar and for Texas lawyers. And for that, I thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I want to thank President Sylvia Firth, President-elect Laura Gibson. They've been there for me this past year and before as both friends and as mentors. They've given me great counsel council that, without that council, I would have probably not done as good a job as I have. And so thank you both so much for being there as friends and as mentors. We appreciate it. Also want to take some time to thank past president Larry McDougall. I'm wrapping up my third year on the board, and I've gotten to know Larry better and better over those 3 years, and I'm very glad that I have. Because over that period of time, I've developed a good friendship with Larry, and I think I can call him my friend, and for that, I'm grateful. Larry's repeatedly helped me as chair. He's repeatedly stepped up to help the state bar, and for that, I'm grateful, and I think we all should be grateful. Thank you, Larry, for everything that you've done. Also, I want to thank my predecessor, Charlie Ginn. I couldn't have asked for anybody that would have been more supportive, more helpful than Charlie Ginn. Charlie Ginn was an amazing mentor. He made this transition to this role as chair for me seamless. The advice that he's given me throughout the course of the last year and even before has been amazing. He's always been there as a friend. I knew that when I was stepping into this role, I had some very big shoes to fill because Charlie was an incredible chair. Charlie, I hope I made you proud, my friend. Lastly, I want to thank all of you, every single one of you sitting here, the board of directors of the State Bar of Texas, the energy, the dedication that you all bring to this organization is inspiring. And it has made it so easy for me to keep motivated to do a good job for the state bar. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to serve all of you. Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much for that opportunity. And with that, I will recognize our president, Sylvia Firth.
Thank you, Santos, and thank you for your incredible service. I think he deserves a round of applause. We've had some fun meetings, and he's done a great job keeping us all in line and making sure we stay on topic and move forward, and for that, I'm really grateful. As is tradition, at the last meeting, I have some presidential citations. And at this time, I'll honor some individuals with presidential citations for their exceptional work this year. And the first citations go to Roland and Cindy Johnson for their work facilitating Leadership SBOT. I'd like to invite y'all to come forward. For those that don't know, Leadership SBOT is a phenomenal state bar program designed to increase diverse leadership participation within the legal community through the nomination of lawyers who possess both the desire and the potential to assume leadership roles in their communities and in the bar. And I have to tell you, those of us who help select the people for this program will tell you it's a very tough task. We have lots of candidates, and we do a lot of work to try to get the best people that we can in the program. Central to the program's mission is ensuring the participant demographics represent diversity of the state of Texas, culturally, ethically, geographically, and in practice area. And Roland and Cindy have contributed to the Leadership SBOT as facilitators and mentors since the program began in 2008. Roland is part of the steering committee to select the class members, and he and Cindy both take time to make sure they know each member of the class. And Cindy closes out the program year with making sure they stay true to who they are as they take on their leadership roles. And so I'd like to thank both you, Roland and Cindy, for your service. And the next citation is for Punam Kaji. She could not be with us here today, but she's been recognized for her work on the Task Force on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Even though she's not able to be here, I wanted to recognize her for her service. She was an active contributor to the task force as it met for over a year and made a series of thoughtful recommendations and actually helped to draft some of the report, also assisted with the questionnaires that we have now online to solicit information for speakers. And I'm pleased to say that all the work of the task force is bearing fruit. Not only is the State Bar Board using the task force report, but I'm also told that local bar associations and affinity groups are using it to formulate action plans within their organizations. So I'd like to take this moment just to recognize Punam Kaji, and we'll make sure she gets her citation. The next commendation is for Cullen Smith Jr. At the April board meeting, I let you know of the recent passing of former State Bar President Cullen Smith Jr. at the age of 96. I also highlighted some of his many contributions to the legal profession, both during his term as president in 1978 and 79 and beyond. And today we're honored to have some of Cullen Smith's family here to accept the presidential commendation on his behalf. I'd like to invite the family to come forward. And as I mentioned to you all in El Paso, this is very special to me because Mr. Smith's daughter, Risher Gilbert, was one of my early mentors in my career. So with us today, we have Risher Gilbert and her sister, Sally Wright, and their husbands, Bob Wright and Bob Gilbert. And Bob Wright is a former chair of the State Bar Real Estate Probate and Trust section, and Bob Gilbert is a former chair of the International Law section. So we're honored to have you all here. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and read the commendation. The presidential commendation reads, "For a lifetime of service to the legal profession and the people of Texas, including his leadership as president of the State Bar, in successfully guiding the bar through its first sunset review and strengthening the grievance process for the protection of the public and advancing diversity in the administration of justice through greater involvement of women and minority lawyers in the bar. By the scope of his service and superiority of his skill, he embodied the finest attributes of a Texas lawyer." Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Okay, so just like everybody else, I get to talk a little bit of our end of year accomplishments. And so I encourage you all to read my column in the June issue of the Bar Journal, where I highlighted some of the bar's accomplishments over the past year. I've already mentioned the important work done by the DEI task force. And also, because of our work together as a board, all of us together, rules were changed so DEI courses and attorney wellness presentations now qualify as ethics hours for CLE credit. The Texas Bar Journal Board of Editors is considering measures to increase visibility of lawyers from diverse backgrounds and practices. In April, the board voted to recommend proposed changes to the Texas Lawyers Creed that would further reflect the bar's commitment to diversity and to align the creed with the State Bar's mission statement. And the bar's website now includes more information on pre-law pipeline programs, along with diversity and equity inclusion speaker submission forms, and eventually that will be a list of people who are available to speak on those topics when you're planning a CLE. Today, you're going to be asked to vote on the creation of a DEI standing committee to continue this important work. And I'd like to thank you all of you, for we've all worked very hard to make this progress possible. And just this morning, I was reading an article online from the American Lawyer that stated that 2022, the diversity scorecard for the legal profession showed the most nationwide progress in that area. It indicated the biggest year-over-year improvement in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm very proud that the State Bar was part of that progress. And I hope that you are too. Now, I want you to know that there's still lots of work to be done. The progress they were celebrating was one incremental, 1% improvement, but that was still more than had ever been realized in years before. We have much the same experience here at the State Bar, and I want to thank you, especially all the committee work that was done. As Santos mentioned, nobody does this by themselves. There's a lot of work that gets done, and it's a shared vision, and I appreciate all of the work that you have done. Like Santos, I want to thank the staff. It takes a village to prop up a State Bar president. I've come to find out people who make sure I'm where I need to be, keep my calendar straight, give me talking points, help me, and they have always been there, and I really want to thank them all for that. And you and the rest of y'all. It's been my extreme honor to be the president of the State Bar. I'm going to give you an update with regard to the Building Planning Special Committee, one of the fun projects we have to work on. And I'm giving the report today on behalf of Jerry Alexander, who couldn't be with us. He will be joining us later in the week. But here's a brief report. It was reported at the April board meeting that the committee was conducting a search for an architectural firm, that we had issued a request for qualifications to 29 architectural firms, and then we subsequently interviewed 3. We selected the Lawrence Group as the firm to move forward with this stage of the process. Among other things, we were impressed with their years of experience, their knowledge of the building. They had worked on the building with the previous restoration, and their experience in state and historical permitting. Our committee requested that the executive staff enter into negotiations with the Lawrence Group about the scope of the initial work, including the cost, services provided, and a schedule of first phase of the project. Phase 1 will include a building assessment, feasibility study, programming, and conceptual design. We also decided to procure an attorney experienced with architectural contracts to help us review and negotiate a contract with the Lawrence Group. And we were lucky enough to get Bill Locke of the Graves, Doherty, Heron, and Moody firm to help us. He helped us with the purchase of the building, and he has years of experience in this area. Bill is helping us with the contract on a pro bono basis, which is a huge gift to the State Bar, and we're very thankful for his assistance. And we're still working on the details of the contract and hope to be moving forward with negotiations soon. So this is my one and only action item in my report. It's the continuation of the Building Planning Special Committee. At the September 24th board meeting, the board approved the creation of a special committee to oversee the management of the 1415 Lavaca building. The term of the special committee has expired, and we simply need to consider the continuation of the committee, approve its roster, and grant the committee authority to make decisions regarding the building in order to keep the project moving forward. A proposed roster is included in your meeting materials, and the committee's composition has not changed from the past year, except that we've proposed adding incoming chair Chad Baruch and incoming president Cindy Tisdale to the committee. Jerry Alexander will continue as chair. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the continuation of the Building Planning Special Committee, including its roster of members, and grant authority to the committee to make decisions regarding the remodeling, repairs, and uses of the 1415 Lavaca building.
Thank you, Madam President. President Firth has moved to approve the continuation of the Building Planning Special Committee, including approval of its roster, and grant authority to the committee to work with State Bar staff regarding decisions on remodeling, repairs, and uses of the 1415 Lavaca building. Do I have a second? Okay, Director Tolchin has seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the continuation of the Building Planning Special Committee, including approval of its roster, and grant authority to the committee to work with the State Bar staff regarding decisions on remodeling, repairs, and uses of the 1415 Lavaca building, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, the motion passes and is adopted. And with that, are there any questions or comments from directors for Madam President Firth? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on. Are you done, Sylvia? Okay. With that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 9, the report from our President-elect, Laura Gibson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Santos. So my first order of business is to talk about the work of the Budget Committee. As Justice Lerman noted in her remarks, the State Bar presented the 2022-2023 proposed budget to the Supreme Court on Tuesday, May 31st, marking the final step in the budget process that began in August of last year. There were 8 justices in attendance, and Trey Apfel and our CFO, Tracy Jarrett, and I answered questions from the court. And on Friday, June 3, I'm pleased to report that we received approval from the Texas Supreme Court, officially adopting our budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. I want to thank the members of the Budget Committee. This Budget Committee worked harder than any other Budget Committee in the bar's history because of all the new steps that we are following as a result of the McDonald case. So if you are a member of the Budget Committee, would you please stand to be recognized? I don't know why Mr. Kroger refuses to stand. Last time it was because he wasn't paying attention. I'm not sure about this time. So the members of the Budget Committee will remember that when we met in December, we had a lot of discussion about the technology fund. And the committee requested that the State Bar staff examine a way that the State Bar budgets for its technology fund and consider alternatives to its process. As you likely know, the technology fund is a separate fund, or what is called a capital projects fund, through which IT capital assets are paid. Historically, the technology fund received operating transfers from the general fund of $500,000 per year, but that was not enough to fund all of the needs. As costs have risen, the fund has also been receiving one-time allocations or board commitments to cover the anticipated funding needs. For example, in the budget that's just been approved by the Texas Supreme Court, the Technology Fund will receive $1.5 million in a special transfer from unassigned fund balances, which is an excess of revenue that we generated from the prior year. The committee requested that the funding for the Technology Fund be more predictable so that it would not rely so heavily on special transfers on a going forward basis. Through the work of the State Bar's CFO, Tracy Jarrett, and our IT Division Director, Craig Chapman, a plan has been developed to accomplish that through 2 changes. First, over the next 2 to 3 years, approximately $600,000 in ongoing expenditures such as license and software fees would be funded through the general fund instead of through the technology fund. Expenditures remaining in the technology fund would be to construct or purchase capital assets. Second, the State Bar will develop a long-term funding plan that includes replacement costs of current IT information systems and infrastructure. The annual transfer from the general fund will be sufficient to set funds aside to replace IT assets as they become outdated or obsolete. This would extend the current cash flow projection of 5 years to a more comprehensive projection. The upcoming Budget Committee, the people who will be on next bar year's Budget Committee, are going to review the staff's proposed changes to ensure more predictable funding is established. I'm working with State Bar leadership staff to try to have our first Budget Committee meeting next month at the local Bar Leaders Conference in July. which will be in Houston. And we will work further to analyze how best to deal with the technology fund so that we can phase it out under Cindy Tisdale's leadership as chair of the Budget Committee this year. Now, as a point of personal privilege, I want to thank Sylvia for her service to our members and to the public. She has done an excellent job serving as our president. She has given so many presentations, and she's done it from El Paso, which is on a different time zone than we are, and from which there are very few direct flights. And as a testament to her commitment, I was amazed that she was speaking to the Lubbock Bar Association on the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. I can't even imagine how hard it was to get back to El Paso from Lubbock on Friday evening. She's also accomplished very important work during her service. The Diversity Task Force report is going to be a resource we rely on for many years to come. She has proposed a standing committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion that this board will vote on in the presentation by Adam Schrammick, the chair of the policy committee. And the creation and continuation of the building planning special committee is doing great work and investing in the future of our bar. So please join me in thanking Sylvia for her leadership. Having stood in Santos's shoes, I know how hard of a job it is being a chair of the board. You know, the new directors heard this morning from Ross Fisher, who said it's really hard advising a board of 40 lawyers. It's equally as hard being chair of a board of 40 lawyers. Now, if Charlie Ginn earned the name Texas Treasurer, I think it only fitting with Santos's mastery of the Roberts Rules of Order and the diplomacy with which he has run our meetings that we give him the moniker of determined diplomat. Please join me in thanking Santos. As for the directors on this board, we could not accomplish the work we do without each and every one of you. Chad told the new directors at new director orientation this morning, incoming chair Chad Brook told the new members how important their work is. This is a $50 million organization, a budget of $50 million per year with 500 employees. And we have been under attack and we will continue to be under attack. And so we need all of us to realize how important this work is and to show up and do your job. You know that my family has a highly coveted and extremely secret recipe, which we refer to as Special Blend. This morning at our new director orientation, I gave each of our new directors a jar of Special Blend. It's no coincidence that SB also stands for State Bar. I told the new directors this morning how quickly their term as director will go by and encourage them to make the most of their opportunity. I'm sure that every third-year director in this room, as well as Mr. Ginn, who's rolling off this board as immediate past chair, will tell you that when they were sworn in 3 years ago, they didn't know the other directors who were part of their class. They didn't consider themselves to be bar insiders. They didn't enter the bar building through some private entrance, and they had not been anointed to the position to serve. Instead, they took the initiative to gather the signatures on a petition that enabled them to be qualified to run as a director for their district. They campaigned among their colleagues, and they rightly earned the vote to serve the state bar, a service that requires that they miss time from their job, often at an income deduction or income reduction to them, that they forego time with their families. And so that's a big commitment. I expect that they will also tell you that through shared respect of our profession, a commitment to helping our fellow lawyers, a desire to improve the quality of our legal services, to make sure that the public gets the best legal advice it can, and their work on common goals and objectives, they formed close relationships and friendships, and they developed a mighty sense of respect for one another. By virtue of these relationships, the board itself is the embodiment of a special blend. As a result, I thought it only fitting that I continue to share that family relationship to recognize the role each of you have played in making the board of directors truly a special blend. Now, second and third year directors, if you need more special blend, we're going to have some at the local bar leaders meeting in July. And then again, I'll bring some more in September if you can't attend the local bar leaders event. If you're an outgoing third year director, I have a few jars that I'll share with you. And if we don't have enough, we'll make sure to get some to you. So I hope that you will use your special blend spices to make your food more flavorful, your celebrations more memorable, and your life more enriched. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Laura. Do we have any comments for our president-elect from our directors? Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 10, which is a report from our immediate past president, Larry McDougall. Larry, you have the floor.
They get to ask questions and comments when I finish?
They do. Get ready.
Oh, there goes that chair. You know, those of y'all that try jury trials like I do, and I'm getting back into it now after COVID, when I'm sitting here looking at y'all right now, I feel like you got that jury panel the judge just brought back after lunch, and you're trying to keep you energized and awake. You know, I see some of y'all laughing, so you know what I'm talking about. I kind of want to summarize what we did or what we tried to accomplish during my presidency. And I want you to understand, getting elected by the lawyers of Texas to be your state bar president it is an honor that just overwhelms me. It's got to be the highest honor that any lawyer, I think, can achieve, is having the lawyers support you enough and to put you in here. And I kind of want to go through some things. Back when I was campaigning in 2019, a former Harris County Assistant District Attorney, as I am, I visited with him in the hall one day, and I noticed he was depressed. And where I'm coming with this is I'm kind of wanting to call out Chris Ritter. And I knew this guy was depressed, so I contacted Chris. And Chris reached out to him. This lawyer convinced Chris that he was okay, he was fine, he wasn't suicidal. 1 week later, he did commit suicide. And as a result of that, I really started putting the pressure on Chris to come up with a suicide prevention program. And Chris did. He enlisted the help of Terry Hill. Where's Chris sitting at anyway? Back there. Okay. He enlisted the help of Terry, and we started going around the state pre-COVID doing these suicide prevention classes. And the reason I bring this up, I understand Laura is going to make that one of her initiatives as president. And I'm so happy that she is, because we had to turn our focus really from suicide prevention to the COVID issues during the COVID years. Right, Chris? That was a big thing. But yet, during 2019 in particular, we had a large number, at least in my view, of lawyers that took their own lives. And all we can really do at TLAP is reach out to them and offer them the services. We can't make them go to it. But the thing is, getting the word out. And the thing about this was, in the suicide prevention, is if you see something, if you're fearful, say something. Don't just keep it to yourself, and say something. And that's what Chris Ritter put together. And I'm not trying to take credit for it. I was just the thorn in his side that made him do this and kept him going. And Chris did an amazing job. And Laura, I understand that you're going to pick that up, and I want to thank you for that, okay? I'm sure you'll do a lot better job than I did at it. But the thing is that's what we do for our lawyers. And Chris, I just want to thank you again for everything you did in TLAP and where you left this thing, okay? And one thing we did do that we got, and Trey helped me with this, is we got another lawyer added. We talked about it in El Paso.
So now we're at 3 lawyers instead of 2 lawyers that are on the TLAP staff, plus Chris, correct me, we also even have another non-lawyer counselor, correct? So we have a staff of 4 people plus clerical help that's there for the lawyers 24/7. And I think that's very commendable of our bar, and I really hope that we keep doing that. Another one I want to talk to is about Ray Cantu. Ray, why don't you take a bow? I don't think anybody's really called you out yet, have they? One of the things you find as president, and Cindy's going to find is incoming as president-elect, is you got to make a whole bunch of appointments. And your go-to is going to be Ray. And Ray, I think, can tell you that when he came in and sat down, because he'll come to you, you don't have to come to him. And one of the things that he did when he sat down is I had researched every single lawyer that had wanted an appointment to a committee or something like that, and already had them listed out. And it's very important to me that when we do these appointments, that it's not just race, sex, it's geographic, it's practice area. We need to be as diverse as possible when we do these. And as directors, what I'm doing on you is asking you to call up on the people in your community. I mean, it's a simple little form they fill out online and send in if you want to be on a committee. And do that and get on there. And it's very important to do it. I mean, I will tell you, I caught some flack a little bit because of some of the people that I appointed, right, Ray? Because we looked at the diversity of it. And like Rudy Mateer, I made him a chair of a committee. And he hadn't paid his dues, he's not been a co-chair, but still, when doing this, we've got to make our committees reflect our bar. And Steve Bolden, I did that with Steve and made him one. And when he wasn't, quote, paid his dues and in line. So there's Tariq, I made him the vice chair of legal services to the poor, civil. And he never had any bar functions at all. And I reached out to people, and I'm asking you to do that, is to reach out to people in our communities, get them to volunteer. Because everybody I've had, almost everybody, has reached back out or said something along the line of serving on these committees is the greatest thing they've ever done. And it starts them with their bar service, and I would like to encourage you to do those things. As a president, we get to basically appoint 2 board members. One is our at-large bar member. And there's Kellyanne Clark. Is she here? I don't see her sitting here. Oh, right in the front. Okay. I want to tell you something about Kellyanne Clark and how I came to pick her. Kelly and I just kind of knew each other from Bar Leaders Conference and stuff, but at the ABA conference in San Francisco, I've got the pleasure of sitting next to Kellyanne. And I fell in love with her. I mean, I just really did. Not like my wife in love, but, in love with her, okay? And I mean, she is just one of the most spectacular people I've ever met in my life. And I came back from that conference and I walked up to Trey and said, I know who my at-large director is going to be. Or not at-large, but, I guess it is at-large. But, and he's like, well, we have a process we go through. And I'm like, I don't care. It's going to be Kellyanne. Well, Kellyanne, it took a little prodding. How many phone calls did I have to make to your house? Okay. And the whole time I'm trying to talk to her, it's sit down, be quiet, don't touch that. The whole time I'm talking to her, she's yelling at the kids. But it took several deals, but she did it. She went through the committees. She finished in the top 2, and here she is right now. And the thing I always want to tell people, because I've caught a little flack from people saying, why did you pick an African-American? I didn't pick an African-American. I picked Kellyanne because she's just that amazing. And it's one of the greatest honors, and I'm hoping that one day, Trey even said this, you'll probably be state bar president, if not chair of the board, okay? So I'm honored, okay? And the other one we get to pick is our out-of-state member. And one of the things I noticed that when we did this is we didn't have anybody from the American Indian. I'm not talking Native American, but the Indian community. And in Fort Bend County, if you want to start talking about minorities, probably the largest minority in Fort Bend County is the American Indian community. So I said, we got to have somebody on this community, on our board, that represents that bunch. So I started calling around to Judge Sandhill and a lot of others, getting names. And then I called these people and interviewed them over the phone. We have Rocky. I mean, I couldn't think of anybody better. But it's important to me. I know what they're doing with DEI and that, but it's important that we try to make our bar look like our community. And Rocky, I want to thank you. You're just an amazing individual. I just can't say enough stuff. And I even went a little further on Bar Foundation. And this is one where I really caught some flack because, most people we appoint to the board on the Bar Foundation that we get to do are people that have been on our board, very active. Well, I decided to apply that same thing again. And I reached out and grabbed a young lady named Jennifer Chang. She's a Chinese American, and put her on the board. And again, she didn't pay her dues and everything, but I understand she's doing a terrific job on our Bar Foundation. And the reason I bring this out is we've got to try to focus and make our board look like our community. And for that, Kellyanne, I want to thank you. Rocky, I want to thank you for joining our board and working with us in this. My great success story, the task force on criminal trials during COVID. If I have a success story, this is it. 5 elected prosecutors, 5 elected judges, 5 criminal defense lawyers, Judge Burt Richardson and myself. And we were on this committee and we made recommendations to the Supreme Court on starting jury trials, not doing Zoom jury trials, what we can do by Zoom. And the Supreme Court accepted all but 2 of our recommendations and put them into place. And for that, we got the award, the President's Award, at least I got it, from the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. And that is one of our biggest success stories because we were instrumental in getting the criminal trial started and how they work in Texas. And with that, I understand Kenda, I don't see her here today, but Kenda Culpepper, who actually ran that program, is going to be joining us as a section rep in the next year. So that's another one I want to give accolades to and everything that they did. One of the big issues that a lot of us ran on, I know Sylvia ran on it, I ran on it, Steve ran on it, Andrew ran on it, Diane ran on it, Lydia ran on it, and a lot of others ran on it, was grievance reform. I chose Judge Mike Fields, a former Republican judge out of Harris County and office partner of mine when I was in the Harris County DA's office, and put together what I believe was the most diverse task force we've ever had in the state bar. When we put this together, we sought to make sure that basically every practice area, sex, race, geographic restriction area, I said restriction, you can always do family law when you start saying geographic restriction. Every geographic area was on this panel, this committee. And they put a lot of work and made some great recommendations. And also instrumental in that committee was our vice chair, Lucy Forbes. And Lucy, I can't say enough to thank you for the work you did on that committee. And basically, you were the brain. Well, you were, okay? And let's just kind of go with that. Another one I want to recognize is David Sergi. This is our bridge too far. We went after the courthouse access badges. And in the courthouse access badges, David, we had already had legislation written up. We were ready to go, but it's just not meant to be. We had too many people against us, just so you know. And while I'm encouraging those of you coming on the board and those of you staying on the board to continue in looking at grievance reform because it's very, very important to our lawyers of Texas. That's the one thing they complain about the most. Randy tried, we tried, and it's just the bridge too far. And we cannot get there. A couple more people I kind of want to do, and I know not Trey, but Steve Fisher always goes, it's basically a pat everybody on the back and say what a great job you did. But people did do great jobs. And we have our President, soon to be President-elect, sitting here, Cindy Tisdale and Roger Key, both former chairs of the board. And we created that task force that dealt with COVID and the lawyers. And they went to work, and while our bar, and we had already been doing a lot of great things leading up to that, they didn't come up with any, groundbreaking ideas, but what they did do is get the word out, get it to the lawyers so the lawyers would know the resources that we had. And Cindy, since you're here, I just want to thank you for everything that you did doing that and the work that y'all put into it. So, my greatest fear is that I've sat back now and looked at what a lot of presidents do, and a lot of presidents will focus on one thing that they try to accomplish during the year. I'm afraid I tried to accomplish too much. I tried to fix every problem that I saw within the bar, and that's kind of where I went. And, with, the things the way they were, but Steve, I do want to say one thing. I saw your Facebook post today. You can ask Trey. I never quit. I was a thorn in his side, wasn't I, Trey? Always trying to push ideas, trying to get stuff going. Everything that we did, we looked at for things that would help all the lawyers, not one group, not a minority, not the non-minorities, but things that would help every single lawyer in Texas. And that was our focus. Now, I've been quiet about the elephant in the room, and I thought that I would address it today. And that's my Facebook post that caused all the disruption. Most of you know I am a retired police officer. I wore that badge for 38 years. I worked the streets. I went places that most of you would not go, did things that most of you wouldn't do, and saw things that would keep you awake at night. And I did it 5 days a week. That was my job, and I loved it. But the thing you got to realize is, when the gentleman sitting in the back will probably back me up on this, when you go out there and you work on the streets with these officers day after day, they become your family, just like your wife and kids. And when you attack those police officers, you're attacking my family. So if you got a problem with that, you're just going to have that problem with that. Because I'm a cop. I'm used to being attacked. I don't care. And that's all I really got to say about that. If you don't like cops, that's your problem. And I'm going to leave that right there. I know there's some of you out there that are mad at me and hate me. And like I said, I'm a cop. We're used to it, right? Now, I kind of want to end it up with a few things right now. This week, I was at the courthouse in Richmond. And at the courthouse in Richmond, I'm standing there with a group of lawyers. And it's a very well-diverse group of lawyers. And one of the lawyers, just out of the blue, made the comment and goes, "We're all proud of you." And I go, "For what?" And he goes, "Because unlike anybody else we've ever seen, you tried, you fought for us, and we're proud of you." And my comment to him was, "I don't think everybody's proud of me." And the response was, "We didn't say everybody liked you. We're just proud of you." And when I walked away, that gave me a good feeling, because I knew then that the lawyers were watching, and the lawyers saw what we were trying to do. Even though we failed to accomplish a lot of it, the lawyers saw it. And not kind of getting off on another thing, we have a problem in Texas, and that is probably about 75% of our lawyers are disconnected from the bar. And that's a true fact, because look at the number. We only had, what, less than a 20% turnout in the last election. The number of our lawyers are going up, but yet the number of lawyers voting are going down continuously. Many of our directorships this time were unopposed in this election. And that shows that there's a disconnect. And, today, Steve called us on Facebook, junior high student council again. And a lot of lawyers look at us that way. And what they do is they look at us to try to solve their problems. And they don't see us doing it. And I can tell you, most of you that ran and had a competitive race, you ran on issues. Like Lydia, I know you ran on issues. And Diane, you ran on issues. We were all running on these issues. And it's important that when we run on these issues, we just don't make promises to get elected, but we carry them out. And the lawyers are starting to kind of think that we're not. We do a lot of good stuff for the lawyers, and we're our own worst enemy about publicizing and letting people know what we do. And with that, I will tell you, most lawyers I talk to tell me when they see state bar emails, they just hit delete. Problem is, you might want to tell people, a lot of now when you get a grievance, they just send you an email. And there's been lawyers getting in trouble because they just hit delete and don't realize that that grievance is the email they're getting. And I'll even tell you, when it comes to the State Bar Journal, I only really read the obituaries and the disciplinary actions, mainly because I just want to see if I'm listed. But really, I don't want to be in the obituaries to make sure I'm not there yet. But the thing is we got to get the word out and let the lawyers know that we care. And if we don't do that, we're failing at our jobs. And so many of the lawyers now turn us off. But as a director, you got elected to this position. It's yours now. And you got to get out there and try to influence these lawyers and let them know. Steve made a comment the other day in El Paso that kind of stuck with me, where when his dog got kicked out of the El Paso meeting, he stood up and confronted our executive director and said, "You work for us, we don't work for you." Oh, he did. And anyway, the thing is, they do. They work for us. And the point I'm making is, as directors, let's guide them. Give them direction in what we need to accomplish and where we want to go. You do remember kicking the dog out, right? All right. Okay. And there's a couple more things I'm going to kind of go into. Is a conservative group of lawyers that I talk to frequently refer to me as the Donald Trump of the state bar. I know you're going to say that, but you may not like how I say it, but I'm usually right. And I took that as another compliment at the end of the day. And in closing, I'm just going to quote General Douglas MacArthur as he was retiring. "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. And like an old soldier of that ballad, I now close my legal career and just fade away, an old soldier, or in my case, an old lawyer, who tried to do his duty as God gave him the light to see that duty." With that, my goal now is to simply fade away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Do we have any questions or comments from directors? Director Fisher?
I feel like I have to say something. Certainly don't appreciate the reference to Donald Trump. But at any rate, I think there were things, Larry, that you wanted to do. I think you were put in a hole. I certainly never agreed politically or socially with your statements. And while you did mention that I said this is mostly going to be a social thing, awards, everybody telling everybody how great they were, I was totally correct. But you missed the part that I told people to come because we have a great CLE program. When you're a person like me, where you criticize what the bar does wrong and you give praise to the great CLE and some of the other things that we do and the great accounting that the bar has, you're not going to make anybody happy. But don't just present the one side. So I'm glad people come. As far as my dog, that was a misunderstanding. I hope Trey and I are past it. I can tell you at the annual meeting where I did bring my dog, at least 100 people extra said, "Hey, that's going to be fun. I'm going to go." And that's worth doing. But my dog had to go to Victoria this week. So I appreciate the work you did. I feel that because of the criticism you got for your statements, you were pretty much rendered impotent. And you picked a committee that, and the bar gets this wrong all the time, while being racially and ethnically diverse, That's not enough. We need diversity of opinion. And so you pick people on that committee that killed the bar reform, and you have to be responsible for that. And I don't use Google Trends, but I think my wife did. And you could look at the bar and the interest in the bar, and it's gone way down. Anybody that knows how to do that. And we've alienated a lot of people. We've alienated a lot of people on both sides of your statements, on
Director
whether
Fisher, please direct your comments to me.
Okay, on whether we really have freedom of speech. And, you know, I was the only director that publicly supported your free speech, even though I didn't like your statements. So the bar has a lot of, and on another post today, somebody's ranting about the bar and criticizing how something with Thompson Services. And I just went on there and said, you've had a chance to speak at meetings. You've had a chance, if you give me your issue and get a few people to speak, that I'll present it. So there's always going to be a lot of people who find it much easier to complain about the bar because they're going to get a bunch of likes on Facebook than really can do it. So I appreciate all the references to me. You know, I'm myself. I could speak for myself. I have my own opinions. I do commend you for running. That was a great campaign. That was the last campaign that anybody ran on issues. Now it's back to, you know, I'm a good person. I'm nice. I love the bar.
Thank you, Director Bim. Can you please restate your point of order? Stand it.
Well,
Thank you, Director Bim.
I'm about
Director
to,
Bim, hold on, Director Fisher.
no, that point of order is garbage.
Director Fisher, hold on. Director Bim, your point of order is well taken. Director Fisher, please keep your comments, whatever comments you have left.
My
to the germane
comments,
issues. Hold on, I'm not done yet, Director Fisher. Please keep your comments germane to the issues that are on the agenda and to the report from past President McDougall.
the report on past President McDougall was about the bar and the direction and what he did. Those were my comments. I don't know how many brownie points she thinks she's going to get.
Director
but that's,
Fisher?
No, that's what I have to
Director
say.
Fisher,
All right.
hold on. You do not speak over me, Director Fisher. I'm the chair of this board.
Right.
Do you have any additional comments that you want to direct to me?
Yeah. No, okay. So that's basically my statement. It's on the direction of the bar, and to just clarify some things that Mr. McDougall said, that Larry said, that I agree with or disagree with.
Thank you, Director Fisher.
thank
Are there any additional comments from any directors? Director Mount?
If I may, Lydia Mount, District 12. I wanted to address what past President McDougall mentioned about those of us who ran on certain issues. And my comment would be a comment of thanks for the work that he did to try and help me accomplish what I had run on in hoping to change. One last comment. I want to thank President Sylvia Burunda Firth. And I'm very, very grateful for you running and winning and setting an example for other Latinas. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mount. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, all right, good. Moving on. With that, we're going to move on to agenda item 11A, which is a report from our Nominations and Elections Subcommittee. I'd ask past President McDougall and past Chair Charlie Ginn to provide that report. You have the floor.
Determined diplomat indeed. All right, so in the words of the immortal Rob Crane, to the hardest working subcommittee in the State Bar, our Nominations and Elections Committee. I'd like for Larry to start the report, and then I'm going to bring up the rear. Larry?
Got it. All right. Thank you, Charlie. I thought we were doing it the other way around. Okay. All right. We're pleased to report that the 2022 state bar elections have successfully been completed. There's no issues that we know of in this one. Everything went fine. You all have seen that Cindy Tisdale of Granbury defeated Joe Escobedo of Edinburgh. Cindy will be sworn in this week as our new president-elect. We wish to congratulate Cindy and Joe both on running great campaigns. The pandemic impacted everybody's ability to campaign in person and for a good part of that year, but they persevered and made the most of it. And I cannot thank them enough for being great ambassadors of our state bar in the way they both conducted themselves. There were 21,614 attorneys that voted in this election, which is a rate of not even 20%. For the paper ballots, there was a 20% return. And so that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with those. As far as the online ballots, they've slowly increased over the past few years. More lawyers are starting to use the online ballots, and we will continue to monitor, or I'll say they will continue to monitor the percentages to determine whether we might consider completely doing away with the paper going online only. Our goal is to make it as easy as we can for every lawyer in Texas to vote. Trust me, there's been a lot of discussions on that, but when we still have 20 to 25% of our attorneys using paper ballots, it's not time, we feel, to move yet. There were 10 new district directors that were elected. In your packet of materials and nominations and elections tab or in board effect, there will be the names of all the newly elected board members. And without calling you out by name, I just want to congratulate each and every one of you and welcome you to our board. And that pretty much concludes my part. Charlie?
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, want to thank our members of the committee. It's an unthanked task, and a lot of our work was front-loaded this year. And if you were on, there were 17 of you, so I'm not going to call everybody's by name, but if you would stand for me, please, we just want to honor you and your work that you did if you were on the nomination subcommittee. Just as a quick comment to our 10 new directors, congratulations. I am so envious of the next 3 years that you're going to have. I think President Gibson said it best. I didn't anticipate the family that I created, but it's there, and you're going to have an incredible time, and you're going to get a lot out of it. And congratulations to you. It will turn, it'll be over before you know it. And so just live on each other, pour into each other. The relationships matter. Just as a point of personal privilege, Santos, and any credibility I have left with this board, I'll just drain it all now. I want to thank the staff for what you do. It's incredible. They're right. It is the best staff in the world. Putting up with all of us and making this happen. We do not deserve you. Laura and Sylvia, thank you for all that you have done as your president, what you have done and what you will do. When I rolled onto the board, Laura was my chair, and she did an amazing job at that. I know she'll do an amazing job this year. Larry, thank you for all you've done for the board. I want to talk about two people, and then I'll sit down and shut up, because really that's what you want from your immediate past chair, is for him to be quiet. 3 people. Chad, you're going to be great. Congratulations. You're going to do an outstanding job. Lean on your board. I know they trust you. There's evidence you're going to do awesome. I agree, but we're saying nice things. No, you're going to be great, Chad. Trey, you're one of my heroes. You're a mentor. We're lucky to have you. We don't deserve you. And thank you. Thank you for all the thankless jobs that you do. Thank you for standing in the gap for lawyers. Thank you for being the executive director that we need and for being there for each and every one of us. And Santos, you have done an outstanding job, my friend. And thank you for your friendship. I think the determined diplomat is a fine title for somebody that is so calm, but genuine, and he operates with love in everything that he does. Whether it's a conversation, whether it's leading this board, it's evidence to me that he cares. And you have just done an outstanding job. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Charlie. Do we have any comments or questions from directors on that report? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item 11B, the report from our policy manual subcommittee. I'd invite Director Schrammick to come up. Director Schrammick, you have the floor.
All right. It's hard to sit out there and hear these things about you and, say, it's very difficult to hear all these positive things that are said and to get an award. But guess what, folks? The people who really deserve that award are the members of the policy committee who are there every day, day in, out, working, redlining hard with me. And I would like, as a personal point of privilege, to recognize them. Kellyanne, Deborah, Maria, Lucy, Lori, Yolanda, David, Michael, and our staff liaison, Brad. Please stand up, and folks, help me give them a round of applause. We just heard a lot about what happened in the past, but I'm ready to take you into the future, folks, because today we do have an action item on the agenda, and that is the creation of a brand new standing committee for the State Bar of Texas, the Standing Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the DEI Committee. In your board packet, if you're at the PDF, it starts at page 48, there's a resolution. There's a resolution, and attached to that resolution are the edits that need to be made to the policy manual in order for that committee to become a reality. Now, you may wonder, why do we have a resolution in addition to the edits? Why don't we just have, here are the changes, let's vote on them, explain why we're doing them, what we're doing, and move on. We thought it was very important that this committee, because it's a new committee, that this board not simply say we've created a DEI committee, now go figure out what you're going to do, but that we provide some direction to the DEI committee to explain to them why this board wanted to create this committee, what they're going to do, what is their charge. And at the same time, we wanted to do it in such a way that it maintained maximum flexibility for that committee to focus on the initiatives and efforts and things that they wanted to do. That's the reason we have the resolution. If you read the whereas clauses, it talks about why the committee is being formed, the history of the committee. It is an outgrowth of that task force we heard about earlier today. And the task force did come up with some great recommendations, a long report. And honestly, there are too many recommendations for anyone to do them all at once, right? And so it's going to have to be, a little bit of picking and choosing and focusing over time and figuring out what's the right time to implement what change now. And what are the new things that the task force didn't do that the committee wants to focus on. So they're being given a very broad directive, but at the same time, this committee is going to help implement meaningful change on the DEI front. So it outlines the history in the whereas clauses. It talks about the amendments that need to be made. This committee is going to be formed by leaders from all of our current sections and committees that have a diversity aspect to them. There's going to be a member appointed by each of those other committees and groups. And then we're going to have 5 positions that are going to be appointed by the president-elect under normal times. But because we're creating this committee for the first time, it will be President Laura Gibson who will select those 5. And at the next meeting, the one I won't be at. This is it, folks. It's up to you to take it from here. At that next meeting, you will all approve her nominations. So that's kind of the structure we're working on. If you look specifically at paragraph 4 of the resolution, it talks about the role of the DEI committee, how it's going to be. It's an advisory committee like all committees are, right? It comes to the board with suggested action items. The board will be able to delegate things to the DEI committee to do. If it wants something researched or looked at, it can send it to that committee to provide an analysis and to come back with its recommendation. It will continue the work of the task force, the very important work that was started. It will be facilitating communications among sections and committees, providing input on perhaps new performance measures from a diversity point of view, and on advising in general on ways to enhance DEI and the administration of justice. It's a pretty broad, a category of types of information and advisory roles that the committee is going to give. Ultimately, you can see there at the attachment, the specific parts of the policy manual need to be changed. We're adding the committee. We're explaining how the appointments are done. You can see there it's in a red line so that everyone can look at the specific changes. And let me tell you, we worked a long time, the policy committee did, on this resolution as well as these changes. We went through a lot of discussion about how the committee should be structured. We went through a lot of discussion on the scope and purpose. We redlined, we cut and pasted, we went back and forth, and ultimately, we're very proud of the work product that is before you. We think that this is a very important committee, and we would ask you to approve the creation of it so that it can start doing some important work in the DEI space. And another point of personal privilege, I certainly want to thank President Brenda Berth for all of her work on this. She, Berenda Firth Berenda, for all of her great work on this. I mean, she is the reason this committee exists. She is the reason that diversity is at the forefront of the State Bar's mind and everything we're doing right now. And this is a great way, in my opinion, to end her presidency, thanking her by creating this committee that will be a part of the State Bar going forward. And with that, that's the end of my report, and that is my motion, is to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Director Stramick. Director Schrammick has moved to approve the resolution creating the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee as included in the board materials, which amends Part 4 of the Board Policy Manual and provides that the 2022-2023 president submit a roster of proposed committee members for approval by the board at its September 2022 meeting. Coming from a committee, no second is needed. However, is there any discussion before we take a vote? Director Forbes, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. In the discharge of our legislative purpose and directives under the State Bar Act, and as an administrative agency of the Texas Supreme Court under the State Bar rules, I would encourage, if the board approves the DEI Standing Committee today, I would encourage the committee, in addition to its already very commendable diversity and inclusion initiatives that Director Schrammick covered and is in our materials, I would encourage the committee to also consider using a definition of diversity that is even broader, a definition of inclusion that is even wider. And to that end, I encourage for the committee to consider all members of our state bar who are our colleagues and the public. And I'm going to give 3 examples, and they're not long. First, for them to also consider including those who practice and observe all faiths in their religious beliefs. Second, those who are legal immigrants like me, from all parts of the world who are fortunate to be a part of this great country. Third and last, for these definitions and the amazing and wonderful goal that it stands for, to include those who hold all viewpoints and perspectives, taking care to show equal respect, voice, and dignity, and then opportunities to our brothers and sisters who bring differing viewpoints in our shared endeavor and our shared desire to achieve our goals. So that's it. It's an encouragement if the board so approves. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you as always, Director Forbes. Any additional comments? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the resolution creating the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee as included in the board materials, which amends Part 4 of the Board Policy Manual and provides that the 2022-2023 president submit a roster of proposed committee members for approval by the board at its September 2022 meeting, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes and is adopted. Thank you so much, Director Schrammick. With that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 12, which is a report from our Audit and Finance Committee. Director Calvillo, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you've heard me say before, we find the Audit and Finance Committee a fun place to serve the bar. And for those of you that are not familiar with the financial statements and operations of the State Bar, it provides a good entry into the operations because they always tell you to follow the money, right? And that's what we're going to do here for you this afternoon as we review the first 11 months of this fiscal year. Again, it's only the first 11 months. So I'm going to see if this clicker works, and it does. So as you can see from the general fund operating results, it's good. We're in the black. That's always better when your revenues exceed your expenditures. So yay, that's wonderful. The gist of it is, and we're going to dive into these details in a little bit here as we dive into the revenues, the expenditures, and compare budgets. But you'll see that for the first 11 months, we generated, or the State Bar generated $40 million, almost $41 million, which means that our annual budget is about $43 or $44 million in that general range. So it's always good that our fund balance is in the black. Now let's look at the revenues in particular. What are those revenues composed of? About half of them are composed of the membership dues. That kind of seems counterintuitive to us in the sense that we kind of feel that our membership dues should fund the bulk of the operations, but that's not true. We wouldn't be able to operate and provide all the services that we do without the Texas Bar CLE revenues. That's almost a third of the revenues are generated by the Texas Bar CLE. And that operates primarily from volunteer services. Folks like many of you that provide CLE, that provide speaker services on the various CLE that make it as desirable as it is to attend Texas Bar continuing legal education courses. So that's an important thing to remember, especially as we look forward into the future and the graying of the bar into the future. So keep an eye on that, especially those of you that are first-year directors. Keep your eye on those demographics as we move forward. The expenditures, these bar graph represents 3 years from 2020 to the present. 3 fiscal years are represented in this. So I think it's probably the first time that we've had the entire pandemic reflected in one chart relating to the expenditures. And so you'll see that what you can't see from this bar chart is what it looked like before. In general, the expenditures have overall gone down as compared to pre-pandemic levels. The reason for that, we've heard many times over this last year, is because we're not traveling as much and more of our operations are being done virtually. I think that efficiency is something that we should also keep our finger on, not only for the operation of the state bar, but maybe even for court operations into the future. That's my personal opinion. But in either event, looking at the expenditures, keep your eye on that's why we've had those results. And as time goes forward, as we talk about inflation and the general cost of operations generally going forward, they're also going to increase, not just because of that, but probably more significantly as we kind of balance in-person versus virtual from this point forward. The state bar follows a number of best practices. One of them, of course, is as you've heard earlier from Laura Gibson, the state bar follows a very rigorous and robust budgetary process, and so as you look at this and you compare what was budgeted versus actual, again, a very good thing that our budget, a very conservative budget, we've exceeded that, and the variance is in favor of a more conservative approach. And so you'll see that our budget, or rather our actual expenditures, our actual operations exceeded our budget operations by about $5.8 million. Again, that's a good thing. Now, why did we miss the mark so much? It's not that we missed the mark in choosing the targets that are the budget. Rather, it's because we have a very conservative budget, which again is a very good practice. It's one among the best practices that you can see in an operation, especially the size of the state bar. The primary fund of the state bar is the general fund. And this kind of gives you an idea of the balance sheet of the general fund. A lot of it is liquid, as you can see, from cash and cash market funds, investments that are maintained in accordance with the State Bar Investment Act, and receivables. So again, very strong statement of financial condition or balance sheet is reflected in the State Bar. Again, the State Bar follows good practices not only in the budget, but also in having audit. The State Bar takes it a step further, not only has an external audit, but has an internal audit function. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The external audit, that's a review of the financial statements to make sure they're prepared in accordance with professional standards, which of course, Tracy Jarrett and her staff ensures that we do. The firm, the external CPA firm that does that is the Weaver firm, a nationally respected firm. And as you can see, that work has already begun for this fiscal year. The internal audit is a review where we turn the microscope not on the financial statements, but on the operations of the the bar itself and the financial operations to make sure that all, prudent control practices are in place. And we have a firm that does that, an external firm that does that as well. It's the McConnell and Jones firms. We just selected that firm for a new 5-year term here recently. It was approved at the last board meeting. Their work will begin soon, and we'll present the first round of that multi-phase internal audit study at the April 2023 board meeting. Oops. And so that concludes my presentation. Thank you all so much for your attention.
Thank you, Director Reveal. Do you have any comments or questions from members of the board for Director Claville? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 13, which is a report from Performance Measures and Strategic Planning. And I'd ask Director Michael Hurst to please come forward. Director Hurst, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. See you. Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Very briefly, I was very warmed to see that Michael Vasquez was very appropriately recognized for his work on the Strategic Plan Committee. That was something that he is that I've known since I was chairing the committee. He went above and beyond. His input and his passion have been incredibly important to the committee, and the committee is very much going to miss his services and his passion. With all that said, the Strategic Plan Committee will have a retreat at the Westin Galleria on July 21st from 1 to 4. Elizabeth DeRico, who many of you have seen have facilitated these strategic plans, will once again be assisting the committee at that time. And that's all I have to report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hurst. All right, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 14. I'd ask Director Kate Bim to come forward. Kate, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. I have the distinct honor today to stand before you as the outgoing chair of the Client Security Fund Subcommittee, which for our new members is a fund that remunerates members of the public who have had their funds either stolen by, misappropriated by an attorney who is a bad actor, or by one who is deceased and did not appropriately safeguard that client's funds. First, I'd like to start by thanking Claire Reynolds, who is our staff liaison. And when I say that she is outstanding in the work that she performs for this committee, in both the volume and the quality of the work that she performs, there's really not enough that I can say in this short time to recognize her for the work that she does. I'd also like to recognize Lucy Forbes, my vice chair, Benny Augusto, Chad Baruch, Steve Fisher, August Harris, Michael Hurst, Lydia Mount, Kimberly Naylor, Nitin Sood, and Michael Vasquez for their service on this committee. The Client Security Fund Subcommittee met on June 1st, 2022 via Zoom. The subcommittee reviewed 40 applications, approving 13 for a total of $13,985. For the 2021-2022 bar year, the subcommittee has paid out a total of $147,385.14. That is $147,385.14 that has been stolen or misappropriated from members of the public. And this committee is a committee that advances the state bar's aim of protecting the public. And so I'm very grateful to have been able to serve. It is hands down my favorite part of my bar service, except for all of you. And I thank all of our subcommittee members for their time. And Mr. Chair, tonight I'd like to cash in my brownie points for an extra dessert. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Director Bim. Do we have any comments or questions from directors? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 15A, which is a report from New Directors Orientation Subcommittee. Kim Wilson, please come forward. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The New Director Orientation Committee welcomed the 20 new directors, section reps, and liaison following the election results and appointments. The 5 committee members, David Cavillo, Forrest Huddleston, Lori Kern, David Smith, and myself, contacted each of the new directors to welcome them to the board and to provide another point of contact. Today, we assisted with the new director orientation starting at 8 a.m. And as always, State Bar staff had the heavy lifting, providing all of the required training and information for the new members so that they will be ready to vote and be sworn in tomorrow. The 2022-2023 class of directors makes an outstanding addition to this board, and we encourage you to make their acquaintance and meet them specifically at the board dinner tonight, and then, of course, as this annual meeting continues. I would ask for the new directors that are sitting in the back of the room today watching this directors meeting to please stand so that we can recognize you and welcome you to the board. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Pack-Wilson. Next up on the agenda is the report from the Professional Development Subcommittee. I know that Director Cardenas informed me that he could not make it. Director Hirsch, are you going to provide that report? Yes, sir. Okay. Director Hirsch, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Luis Cardenas could not be here to give the report. I am very honored and proud to give what I think is a very positive report on the Professional Development Subcommittee. Texas Bar CLE has resumed doing all of our seminars in person, so that's a very exciting and positive thing. And the programs have gone very, very smoothly. Our staff, our speakers, sponsors, and attendees have been very happy to meet in person. In-person attendance has been a little bit lower than we had hoped, and certainly lower than in pre-pandemic years, but it's starting to pick up. And for the last quarter of the 2021-2022 fiscal year, attendance for in-person programs on average is about 75% of that for the same programs that go back to 2019. We've added a webcast replay about 1 month after each live seminar to provide a virtual option for lawyers that aren't comfortable meeting in person and those who prefer the convenience of taking the online CLE at a specific and scheduled time from their living rooms. The Texas Bar CLE is doing very well financially, although revenue is down from the budget projections for live courses due to the somewhat lower attendance. Overall revenue is up 5% over projections as of the April financial statements from additional revenue from the webcast replays that we've implemented and record high online class sales. We also have had lower than anticipated expenses, of course, as we heard just a little while ago, because leaving Texas Bar CLE with a substantial net revenue surplus. I want to also report on the Minority Affairs Department, which is working on its flagship program, the Texas Minority Council Program. It will be the program's 30th anniversary. The conference will take place, if you want to put this on your calendar, November 2nd through 4th of this year in Dallas. The program is one of the premier client development, networking, and CLE events for attorneys in Texas, and the registration is currently open, and you can learn more about the program by visiting texasbar.com/TMCP. Texas Bar Books continues to face supply chain issues and global paper shortage. We've had to change some of our books to accommodate the paper shortage. For example, we were not able to get our usual paper for the annotated family code, and we're forced to use a heavier weight paper. While that seems like an insignificant issue, the heavier weight increases the size of the book beyond what could be bound in a single volume, and creates additional issues. So the Texas Bar Books editors and the production staff found creative ways to reduce the size of the books so that we can maintain the single volume format. So challenges that you don't necessarily know about. In some cases, we found faced delays in printing our books, in particular the Texas Real Estate Forms Manual and the Texas Guardianship Manual have been a few weeks, although that'll mean that the revenue from these books will be realized in fiscal year 22-23 rather than 21-22. The lawyers who use these manuals are not likely to notice a significant delay. One way we've tried to address the paper shortage has been a marketing campaign to encourage attorneys to switch to purchasing the digital-only version of our manuals. Finally, this month, the Texas Bar Books Publications attorney, Sue Mills, celebrates 50 years as a licensed attorney in Texas and as an employee of the State Bar. And so in May of 1972, she joined the State Bar of Texas as a temporary employee while she finished her law degree at the University of Texas Law School. Since then, she has worked for the bar as a legal editor and as a director of what was then known as the Books and Systems Department. And she did that from 1985 to 2000. But Sue is best known for her decades of work as the legal editor for the Texas Family Law Practice Manual and as a liaison to the committee of volunteer authors responsible for this manual. Let's once again recognize Sue. Mr. Chair, that is the report.
Thank you, Director Hurst. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 15C. Director Tolchin, you're up. You have the floor.
I have no report.
Director Tolchin, the sweetest words we've heard all day. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 16. Director Catherine Murphy, you are. Director Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Gosh, now I feel pressured to cut some of this. Good afternoon. The Council of Chairs met on May 16th in Austin, and this meeting is usually scheduled for February, but it was postponed this year until May so that all of the sections could meet live. Because it was so late in the year, both the chairs and the chair-elects were invited to attend, and there were more than 65 section officers in attendance, and everybody was really glad to be back together. In addition to receiving legal guidance on the recent changes to the State Bar's legislative program and the ramifications of both the Keller and the McDonald opinions on section activities, the section leadership spent time brainstorming about what they learned from the pandemic and how those things will change and improve section activities going forward. The board policy manual was also reviewed, including minimum standards and deadlines for sections. There are some amazing sections, of course, that significantly exceed the minimum requirements, and they're doing great work and providing substantial value to their members. The section officers were also reminded of the role of the section representatives to the board committee, and there are 6 section representatives, and the role of these representatives include improving communications between the sections and the board, communicating information from the board to the sections, making recommendations to the sections and the board, and reviewing sections for compliance with state bar rules and the policy manual, and of course also monitoring sections and helping them when they are struggling. During the Council of Chairs meeting, the sections elected 2 new section representatives to the board of directors, and I would like to welcome Jerry Bullard, who is a member of the litigation, legislative, and campaign sections, and he is a past chair of the appellate section. Jerry will serve a 3-year term as a medium section representative. And Kenda Culpepper, who represented the criminal justice section, will serve as a 3-year term as a large section representative. The sections are currently busy holding their annual meetings right now and elections, many of which are being held at this meeting, and they're getting ready to start their new year. There will be an orientation in August for new chairs and treasurers, and that meeting will be held virtually so that as many officers of the sections can participate as possible. So in conclusion, both Deborah Cordova and I, we have been honored to serve on this board and as chair and vice chair of the section reps committee. And the new chair and the vice chair will be Michael Smith and Carlos Cardenas, respectively. And I'm certain they will both do an amazing job of serving both the sections they represent and the State Bar of Texas during the upcoming year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Murphy. Director Murphy, thank you. And Director Cordova, thank you as well for your fabulous service to this board. Thank you for your commitment. With that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 17, the report from the Commission for Lawyer Discipline. And, okay. All right, Bobby. Can I come up here? Sure.
Thank you and good afternoon. On behalf of all of the members of the commission, I want to thank you for having us and for all of your service today. Just a very brief report regarding some disciplinary statistics for the year. For this prior year, there were 559 complaints resolved through 400 sanctions. Of the sanctions that were ultimately imposed, 21 resulted in disbarments, 27 in resignations in lieu of discipline, 120 suspensions, 39 public reprimands, 94 private reprimands, and 99 referrals to the Grievance Referral Program. In terms of attorney fees revenues that were collected, the amount resulted in $311,911, which is $26,922 over the projected amount collected from last year. Also, some additional good news from the certificates of good standing revenue, or collection amount was ultimately collected in the amount of $276,450. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, do you have any questions or comments from directors? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the TYLA report, and I'd ask Janine Rispoli to please come forward. President Rispoli, you have the floor.
Hello. Well, on the theme of long TYLA reports, I will try to keep this short, but our board did so much this year. I'm so proud of them. So I do want y'all to hear about all of their accomplishments. Sorry. There we go. TYLA president having IT problems. I'm so proud of our board. We created so much new content. If you haven't looked at our podcasts, if you haven't looked at our website before, we've added on to previous projects. Each of our projects is the result of hard work and a passion for that subject. So whether you need a little inspiration or a drive home podcast, go check it out. New projects we created this year, our Civility for All project created a civility website for lawyers. We call that the Civility Hub. And then we have a civility website for educators to teach students the importance of civility through the examples of great lawyers. We have already rolled this out thanks to several educators and notably our incoming president-elect's husband, who is an educator. We've had a lot of really good feedback, and this has been so fulfilling to see a project that was near and dear to my heart become a TYLA project and start reaching people. We created a federal evidence and depositions guide. Our past president, Brittany Harrison, was the course director for our wellness retreat, also a passion project. I'm still referencing the notes that we got from that retreat. Take a look at what that was and take that home to your community, because we're still talking about it. And of course, we always love to see Erica Gregg come present. We have nonprofit leadership guides, resources meant to help lawyers, not just young lawyers, but all lawyers, when you're on a nonprofit board and maybe you're a family lawyer and not a tax attorney. What can you look at? What are the resources that you can take to your nonprofit service? Again, we had new toolkits, new podcasts, new panel interviews. We have strategized social media initiatives to get all of the resources, specifically the resources for educators out. So you'll see a lot of that in the coming months between the academic school years. And I have to say that our TYLA board, we didn't just talk the talk of civility. From our very first meeting, we understood the assignment because we had a discussion, a very passionate, a very important discussion about updating our membership definition. And we didn't all agree on that. So we had to utilize civility and thinking about the respect that our board members showed to each other, the passion, but the civility at the end of it. I just could not be prouder of them. And as a result, we have a wonderful new membership definition also approved by this board. So thank you. Watch our videos on our wellness and civility hubs. We have outstanding speakers on there. We have for educators that you know and love, resources for talking about civility for school-age children. But they're also just really, really good reminders of if you look for the conflict, if you look for the bad, you're gonna find it all day, wherever you look. But we need to look for the good. We need to look for the civility. And when you do look for the civility, you see it. And it is so inspiring. For me, it was joining the TYLA board reminded me what good lawyers can do and what good lawyers can be passionate about, but still coexist and respect each other. It is so worth it. Look for the civility and own it. Understand that assignment. We have a lot of really outstanding directors, but I do want to acknowledge several who are getting awards, including our Civility Awards. So I'll start with our Civility Awards. This year, our Civility Awards went to Jefferson Fisher of Beaumont, Josue Galvan of San Antonio, and and Courtney White of Amarillo. We also have 2 board members who are in active service. And so we have Service Appreciation Awards to Mark Altman of Waco and Michael Hansen of Richmond. And we're so grateful for the leadership they're showing, and they're a huge inspiration to us. We also have the President's Award went to Tiffany Shepard of San Angelo for all of her work on our Civility for All project. The Keith L. Kruger Award going to Jonathan Stone of Austin. Outstanding First Year Director Award goes to Garrett Coots of Lubbock. The Trial and Appellate Advocacy Awards go to Kurt Cooper of El Paso, who is actually here today with our state moot court competition. And he's just absolutely indispensable. Brandon Draper of Houston and David Hagan of Longview. David is also here, and they're very hard at work. So if you see people running around looking like they're doing something, that's your TYLA directors that you can be very proud of. Then we have President's Awards of Merit to Amy Biggers of Dallas. She's actually the spouse of one of our directors, also a lawyer, and she gave a lot of really great education type content for our civility. Darby Gibbons, Branch of Houston, she's our law student liaison. She absolutely did an amazing job taking our content and connecting us with her law school. Then we've got our Eduardo Marquez Certucha of Houston, Scott Collins of Dallas for the work that he does in all of the video content and website content that he's done. And then Callie Franks of Dallas, Josh Pratt of Lubbock, our president-elect Laura Pratt's husband, and Reggie Wilson of Houston. Then every year we give out 3 statewide awards. The Outstanding Young Lawyer of Texas Award this year went to Jillian Schumacher of Houston. The Liberty Bell Award goes to a non-lawyer who has done a lot of service for the legal profession. And this year that went to Opal Lee of Fort Worth. And then our Outstanding Mentor Award is David Deaconson of Waco. This makes Waco having 3 back-to-back mentor awards, and we're just couldn't be more excited to bring that back to my hometown. I'm going to try and keep this short. I really encourage you to look at our website, but I really encourage you, if you haven't already, reach out to your TYLA director. They are really special people and they have a heart for service. And I know that you're going to enjoy that. As the civility president, I get teased a lot for being cheesy and maybe too mushy, but I do have to say this, that when I started my journey to being a family lawyer, I worked in high school for attorneys a couple blocks away. And then one of my first years of practice, when my law license was new and so was the Houston Civil Courthouse, my mother and my grandmother came to watch me do an uncontested prove up. Very boring. But they wanted that legally blind moment, and it was fun. And afterwards, if you haven't been in the civil courthouse, there are these gorgeous windows that just frame the skyline, and it's beautiful. And so my mom and I were standing there with my grandmother, and completely not planned. My mother looked and she pointed at a church that you could see. And she said, "That is the church where we picked you up when you were 9 days old." And so that was one of those moments where I knew that this profession that I had been wanting for my whole life was the one for me. So please, protect this profession, be good to each other, be good to yourselves. I have just been so honored to serve with each of you. Thank you so much. Don't forget my number. I will always be there to help. And then Brittany, you've just been an outstanding example of gracious leadership, and I'm so thankful for you. And Michael, I cannot wait to see what you're going to do. You're just going to light the world on fire. And Laura, we have a trend now. We've got 3 blonde TYLA presidents in a row. So, you've got blonde shoes to fill. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Janine. Janine, I think you've done an amazing job during your term as president of TYLA. I don't know if many of you know this, but Janine and I go back to local bar services days when we were both on that committee, and I've had a chance to see her grow over the years and have always been so impressed with her and so impressed with the great work that TYLA does. Actually, Carlos Cardenas and I go back to local bar services as well. But how about a round of applause for TYLA, everybody? They're truly amazing. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 19C. And I'd ask Judge Elizabeth Earle, who's right there, to please come forward. Judge Earle, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. First of all, the judicial section is doing great. Just want to let you know that. And we had our retreat back in April. It was very well attended. And we spent the entire time talking about what we can do to continue representing our membership and working with the Texas Center for the Judiciary, which is having their conference coming up with all the judges around the state. We're continuing to work with getting us to all the judges to continue using Zoom and get the work with how we are getting that done with the help of the Texas Center for the Judiciary and the Office for Court Administration. We also heard from our Legislative Committee Chair, which is and continues to be Judge Alfonso Charles, who's working really hard this next session, and our Ethics Committee chaired by Justice Lee Gabriel. So I have all intention that this is going to continue to do well this next year. And we have in the second to back row, the Honorable Melody Wilkinson, if you don't mind standing up. She's the beautiful lady in the yellow jacket that will be serving with you this next year, and you will all love her just like I do. And I have to say, I think this is my 40-plus year at an annual meeting. So I have volunteered at the bar. I've worked for the state bar. I was a law student division member of the state bar and the Texas Young Lawyers Association board member as well. So it's my honor to be serving with you this past year as a liaison. And I look forward to all the continuing good work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge Earl. Appreciate all your service. Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from directors for Judge Earl? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is a report from our federal judiciary. And I'd ask Judge Michael Troncalli to come forward. Judge Troncalli, you have the floor.
Judge Earl, if I heard correctly, you said you've been around here for 40 years, and I find that hard to believe. The plus years. Oh, rub it in, will you? Haven't been around that long, and look at me, will you? But I have, this is my final meeting, and what a joy it's been to be with you. I have 2 points I want to make, 2 observations. The first concerns inclusion and the 7th Amendment. Now you might think, what in the world does inclusion and have to do with the 7th Amendment? Well, let me tell you about that, my thoughts about that. The 7th Amendment, right to trial by jury, in my opinion, perhaps may well be one of the most important constitutional rights that we have. And I'm concerned that it's in danger. I just see it as a judge, the collective memory and the collective wisdom of juries leads to the right decision. And it really is a system that protects the rights of litigants. Now, I'm pleased to report to you, from my observations from the bench, that the most effective trial lawyers come from all, and I mean all, demographic groups. The inclusion problem I'm talking about is age. The trial lawyers fighting for justice tend to be over the age of 45, and really, oftentimes, more times than not, much older than 45. And if the new lawyers or young lawyers don't get experience in court, the 7th Amendment will essentially die because we will not have any lawyers, or very few lawyers, who will have the knowledge to assert that right on behalf of the citizens of Texas. But as leaders of the bar, I think you can help. You can help by example, and you can help by setting forth in future agendas of activities of the various sections of the bar, the TYLA and other groups. Be a mentor. Encourage other peoples to be a mentor. Now, I know that goes against what you often hear from firm administrators and people like that who want to maximize the billable hour and that's important. But obviously, lawyers have to make money, but you must take time to be a mentor to the next generation. And in fact, if you're in my court and in some other courts, take advantage of some of the standing orders we have that will allow you to have a new lawyer to argue a motion in court, whether or not really an oral hearing is needed. Take advantage of that. Find ways to get these new lawyers and young lawyers involved in your cases so that they can participate in the presentation at trial. The second observation I'd like to make is, of course, rather obvious. Texas is growing. businesses are moving to Texas. As we heard in our meeting in El Paso, the number of lawyers in Texas is growing. In fact, I think even the fastest growing county is in the Eastern District of Texas in Cullen County. All of that's good, but it does put pressure on our judicial infrastructure. Now, as a judge, I'm limited in what I can say about this, but there will be a need, and is a need, for new judgeships. There is a need for the renovation and maintenance of existing courthouses, and there is a need for new courthouse spaces, in part due to the tremendous population growth in Texas. And as leaders of this Bar Association, this is an issue that you will have an opportunity to weigh in on in the years ahead, and I hope that you will. Again, I want to express my appreciation to all of you for the warm welcome you've given me this past year. It's been a lot of fun. We've gone now from one end of the state to the next. We are one great state and one great bar. Thank you so much.
We want to thank you, Judge, for all of your service to the bar over the last year. It's been invaluable. Thank you. With that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 19E, which is a report from our out-of-state lawyer liaison, Rocky Israni. Rocky, you have the floor.
So thank you. The State Bar from my home state of California recently released their 2021 annual report. So using that report, I thought I'd just give you some updates about what's happening in the legal profession in California as a comparison point. First, a few fast facts about what is one of the nation's largest state bars. The total number of attorneys licensed in California is 282,412. New attorneys admitted is about 10,578, which for California was a record number. Legal aid funds distributed is 60.3 million. Victims reimbursed through the client's security fund is 291. Customer service calls that were handled in that year were 97,600. Many of you may know that the lockdowns in California lasted much longer than many other states, and that coupled with extremely high cost of living in California, especially near the metropolitan areas. Gas in California, by the way, is just over $7 now a gallon, created continuing uncertainties that were realized by many Californians. As the executive director stated in the annual report, the past 2 years marked an increased societal recognition of how structural inequities created a pandemic within a pandemic for many communities within the state. This has actually really in turn created an opportunity for the local bars as well as the state bar to give back to the community in more ways than we can imagine, especially in the areas of public protection, access to legal services, and diversity and inclusion. And finally, as Larry mentioned earlier, mental health issues, not only among attorneys, but especially in depression and suicide, are on the rise in general. And the recent lockdowns have really accelerated that in many areas in the country. Over the past 3 years, I've been very actively involved in pro bono work for a global humanitarian organization that worked extra hard during the pandemic to serve underserved communities. The prevalence of mental health issues, the number of calls that we've gotten to support those who now have met very severe mental health issues that have consequences not only for them, but for their entire families, and the resulting need for access to legal services, especially under the lower income, underserved communities, has drastically increased during this previous few years. And I believe that this presents a huge opportunity, not only for the State Bar of California, but also for the State Bar of Texas. And I hope this can be one of our top priorities going forward. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Rocky. Rocky, you've done a great job for our board over the last year. Thank you so much for your service. With that, we're cruising along, everybody. So we are going to recess for about 10 minutes. And so I'm going to call a recess, and we will reconvene this meeting at 3:45. Yeah, I know. Okay, the time is now 3:47 PM, and I'm calling this meeting back to order. And the next agenda item that we have is closed session. So we're going to go into closed session, everyone. The time is now 3:47 PM, and the State Bar Board of Directors will now recess the open meeting and reconvene in closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, for the purpose of consulting with legal counsel, including regarding pending or contemplated litigation, including McDonald versus Firth and Bennett versus State Bar of Texas, and regarding requests from Joe Longley and Mark Gravely for documents from Vincent and Elkins related to the McDonald litigation, and as authorized by Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, to deliberate regarding personnel matters. With the exception of board liaisons and section representatives, all other individuals, including non-essential staff and other guests, need to excuse themselves from the closed session at this time, and we will notify the public when we're 5 minutes out from returning to open session.
Yeah, what time?
Let's go ahead and take our seats so we can wrap up this meeting. Charlie, come on. All right. The time is now 4:39 p.m. and the open session of the Board of Directors Executive Committee meeting will now reconvene. During the closed session, only matters relating to the evaluation of the General Counsel and the evaluation duties and compensation of the Executive Director consultation with legal counsel concerning pending or contemplated litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding requests from Joe Longley and Mark Gravely for documents from Vincent and Elkins related to the McDonald litigation were discussed. No action was taken during closed session. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to President Firth.
Thank you, Santos. On behalf of the Evaluation Subcommittee, I move approval of the recommendation for Executive Director Trey Apfel to receive a 6% one-time lump sum merit payment effective June 1st, 2022.
Thank you, President Firth. President Firth has moved to approve the recommendation for Executive Director Trey Apfel to receive a 6% one-time lump sum merit payment effective June 1st, 2022. Do I have a second? Please stand and clearly state your name. Director Almanzan has seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation for Executive Director Trey Apfel to receive a 6% one-time lump sum merit payment effective June 1st, 2022, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, the ayes have it and the motion is adopted. Okay. With that, we are now going to recite the mission statement. Okay. Everybody please stand up and repeat after me. The mission of the State Bar of Texas is to support the administration of the legal system, assure all citizens equal access to justice, foster high standards of ethical conduct for lawyers, enable its members to better serve their clients and the public, educate the public about the rule of law, and promote diversity in the administration of justice and the practice of law. Amen. All right, everybody can take their seats. Before we adjourn, a couple of announcements. The group photo of both the outgoing 2021-2022 and the incoming 2022-2023 board will be taken immediately following this meeting in Houston Ballroom number 5, which is right next door to this room. All members of this year's board and those in the incoming year, please head over to that room as soon as we adjourn. And please meet in the lobby at 6 p.m. for the bus to take us to Brennan's Restaurant for the board reception and dinner. The incoming board meeting tomorrow begins at 9 a.m. and is in the same room as this meeting today, which is Houston Ballroom number 6 and 7. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn? 6 p.m. That's right. Okay. Director Charbonnet has moved to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a second? Director Forbes has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Okay. Motion's adjourned. Meeting's adjourned.